Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting genuinely well-informed with those facts that surprise you and just enough conversation to keep you listening.
That's right.
Today, we're plunging into a story that, well, it doesn't just chill you. It really makes you rethink human influence, belief, the whole thing.
It really does.
Yeah, we're not talking ghosts or, ancient legends here.
Yeah.
Our focus is on something, frankly, much more disturbing. It's that horror born from, well, human manipulation, psychological control, and the terrifying violence that can come out of that, especially in a specific insidious context.
Absolutely.
We're doing a deep dive into the Kirtland murders. It's a genuine nightmare that happened in, of all places, the quiet farmlands of Ohio back in '89.
Seems so peaceful, right?
Exactly. And this isn't just about recounting a crime, though it was horrific. It's about exploring how one charismatic person could, systematically break down others' wills, how they could twist faith into this awful tool for control and ultimately murder. So our mission today is to unpack this story. Jeffrey Lundgren, the Avery family. We want to understand the mechanics of it all and what it tells us about the disturbing world of cults, and maybe about human vulnerability itself.
And I think what's really crucial here for you listening is not just the tragedy itself, awful as it was, it's the deliberate, calculated way it progressed.
Right, step by step.
Exactly. We'll trace how things that seemed, well, pretty harmless at first, people just looking for community, for spiritual meaning, how that can spiral into, well, unspeakable tragedy. We're going to get into the psychological levers, how individuals get drawn into these situations, how a leader builds that absolute loyalty, and why understanding all this is so vital for you, because these kinds of influence, they're everywhere in different forms.
Okay, so let's start right there at the center of it all. Jeffrey Lundgren. Now, on the surface, people said he was quiet, even meek sometimes.
Yeah.
A religious teacher, spoke softly, always had a Bible with him. But there's this word that kept coming up when people described him, magnetic.
Magnetic.
And, for listeners who follow this stuff, magnetic isn't always just charm, is it? It can often be a sign of something.
Yeah.
Something deeper going on.
Yeah.
So what was the source of his magnetism? How did he first pull people in?
That's exactly the right question to ask. Lundgren's initial pull, it wasn't loud or flashy. It was more that what we often call love bombing. Yeah. He'd shower new people with attention, make them feel, uniquely understood, special, like they were part of this exclusive spiritual family. And that creates this intense bond, right? It often fills emotional needs. People aren't getting met elsewhere. So he started small, right there in Kirtland, Ohio, gathering these devoted followers, often whole families, actually, like the Averys. And they were just looking for, deeper faith, a community within what they thought was a legitimate part of their religion.
So nothing sinister on the surface at first.
Not overtly, no. His control method, it wasn't sudden, it was insidious, gradual, what researchers call gradualism of indoctrination. He started by slowly, very carefully twisting scripture. And it wasn't just picking verses he liked, it was more like bibliomancy almost. Finding obscure passages, making these really subjective connections, creating this feeling of exclusive knowledge, a divine mandate only he had. He convinced them the world was ending, that he was the chosen prophet, and that disobeying him meant, well, damnation. He basically built this sealed-off reality where only his word mattered.
So it starts with that charisma, that gradual twisting of belief. But how did that turn into, total control over their everyday lives? Because his influence went way beyond just church stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. The first phase is psychological, often using what's called the foot-in-the-door technique. Small requests, things that seem reasonable on their own, but they build up. And eventually it's total control. It gets harder and harder for people to see the shift or pushback. Lundgren systematically took over the most personal parts of their lives.
Like what?
Well, what thoughts were pure, what they could eat, when they were allowed to speak, how they handled their money. He demanded their earnings, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. He isolated them from outside news, controlled who they talked to. It's this gradual wearing away of her personal freedom, That's classic thought reform, turning followers into extensions of himself. He even made them live communally, blurring those personal boundaries even more, cementing his authority.
It really is a textbook case, isn't it? And among these followers, we find the Avery family. Dennis and Cheryl and their 3 young daughters.
Tragic.
Just looking for guidance, like so many others who get caught up in this But they were also the ones who started to see cracks, right? They started pushing back a bit.
Precisely. And this right here is the critical turning point. This is what leads to the tragedy. The Averys, unlike some of the others, they started to show doubt. They began questioning Lundgren, his prophecies, his constant demands for money, his increasingly strange interpretations of scripture.
That couldn't have gone over well.
Not at all. For someone like Lundgren, this wasn't just a disagreement, it was a major threat to his narcissistic supply. Any challenge, any questioning of his story, he saw it as a personal attack, an existential threat, almost.
So he had to shut it down.
Exactly. It often leads these types of leaders to take extreme steps to regain control, to eliminate the dissent, the Aver's doubts. In his warped view, that was betrayal, sin, something that had to be cleansed. It just shows how incredibly dangerous it is when a cult leader's authority gets questioned.
That psychological grip sounds terrifyingly strong. But it's interesting, isn't it, that the Averys did manage to hold on to enough of themselves to question him.
It speaks to some resilience, yeah.
But for Lundgren, it was unforgivable. And that leads us to that awful night, April 17th, 1989. You have to picture it. Just an ordinary evening. The Avery family, maybe still hoping for some kind of understanding, they go to Lundgren's farmhouse.
Thinking it's another meeting, maybe?
Exactly. Another prayer meeting, perhaps. They had no idea what was waiting for them.
No. What happened next was just pure, calculated terror. Lundgren's followers, acting on his direct orders, they tied up the whole family, one by one.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine? Dennis and Cheryl, gagged, unable to cry out. And their three little girls, Karen, Rebecca, Trina, just kids, 7 to 15, sobbing, confused, asking what was happening. Terrified.
Okay.
It's that act of dehumanization, you know, binding them, silencing them. It's a deeply disturbing psychological tactic you often see before extreme violence. It makes the victims seem like objects, helps the perpetrators get past their own natural reluctance to hurt someone.
And the way they were killed, it's just so cold, so methodical. They were led one by one into a barn on the property.
You're from the main house.
Right, and each one shot, execution style. Dennis first, then Cheryl, and then their daughters. Karen, Rebecca, Trina, just extinguished. Innocent kids, trembling, silenced. It's the detail about the children that just, it chills you to the core.
It does. And Lundgren's justification, if you connect it back to these manipulative leaders, it's not just disturbing, it's a classic example of moral disengagement.
How so?
He told his followers it had to be done. He claimed God required it, that this blood was purification for the Averys' supposed betrayal.
Purification, unbelievable.
It's not just twisting faith, it's completely flipping morality upside down, all in the name of religious duty. He convinced them that by doing these horrible things, they were actually serving God, fulfilling a divine plan, not committing murder.
So he gave them a way to rationalize it?
Exactly. It's a psychological framework that let his followers somehow square their actions with, well, whatever moral compass they had left, or maybe just silence it completely.
After something so horrific, you'd think people would scatter, panic, run. But what happened next shows another level of that chilling control he had.
Right.
The Avery family's bodies buried, a shallow grave right under the barn floor. But the cult, they didn't leave, they stayed.
Yeah, and this is where that cognitive dissonance really kicks in for the remaining members. Think about it. The sheer terror, plus this huge psychological weight of having done something so unthinkable, supposedly for God.
It would lock them in deeper, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, because admitting the horror would mean admitting they were murderers, not God's chosen few. Disbelief would be too shattering, so they doubled down, believed the justification even harder.
Wow.
They kept functioning for months, like nothing happened, eating together, praying together, listening to Lundgren's twisted sermons, all while 5 bodies were buried right there.
Beneath their feet.
Beneath their feet. It just speaks volumes about the fear, the conditioning Lundgren had achieved, maintaining this illusion of normal life on top of this ghastly secret. They were trapped, not just physically, but by their own actions and Lundgren's constant reinforcement of his story.
But secrets like that, especially involving 5 people, they rarely stay buried forever, do they?
No, thankfully. Eventually, the truth came out. One of the followers, after months of living with this terrible burden, they broke away.
Found the courage.
Yes. It often takes an immense personal crisis or maybe some outside contact for someone to break free from that kind of intense control. So in 1990, a follower, maybe guilt, maybe fear, maybe just a shred of their old self surfacing, they finally went to the authorities.
And told them everything.
Whispered the truth, as the reports say. And that led to the whole nightmare being exposed. Investigators went to the farm, dug beneath the barn, and found the shallow grave. 5 bodies decomposing. The entire Avery family wiped out.
Just devastating confirmation.
And that Followers Act coming forward, that's often so crucial in breaking these cycles of cult control. It takes incredible courage.
And when they finally arrested Jeffrey Lundgren, his reaction, or lack thereof, was just as chilling.
Completely consistent, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely no remorse, no guilt, no regret. He just kept saying he'd done God's will. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around that level of detachment. Or maybe it was just total conviction in his own delusion.
And this is where we have to be absolutely clear, right? For everyone listening, Lundgren wasn't a prophet. He wasn't chosen. He was a manipulator, a killer, a textbook example of a pathological narcissist who could justify anything, no matter how horrific, if it served his own power or his warped sense of a divine mission.
Right.
And if you look at the bigger picture of cults, the really scary parts aren't always the weird rituals or the chanting or even the threats you can see. It's the human element. It's the subtle, insidious ways someone's mind can be taken over. How ordinary people, often good people, people looking for something meaningful, how they can be led step by step into the arms of just unspeakable evil.
And it's real.
It's absolutely real. This isn't a legend. It's not a ghost story. This happened. A whole family was destroyed because they put no trust in the wrong person, and because a powerful, controlling personality exploited basic human needs, the need for belonging, for meaning.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive on the Kirtland murders, what's the main takeaway? What should we really hold on to from this?
Yeah.
It seems to me this case, like so many others with these dynamics, really highlights a fundamental truth. The real horror isn't in ghost stories. It's in the psychological manipulation, the dark places human behavior can go.
Yeah.
It's a really stark reminder of how belief, when it's not questioned, when it's channeled through just one single authoritarian voice, it can be turned into a weapon.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought for you listening and reflecting on this really disturbing story. Think about how influence works in subtle ways. It's not always in these extreme cult situations.
This is more everyday sometimes.
Yeah. We're exposed to persuasion all the time. So what's really important here is the value of developing intellectual humility, questioning assumptions, even your own, actively looking for different viewpoints, nurturing a healthy skepticism.
Critical thinking.
Basically, yeah. Developing that critical thinking is your best defense against these insidious kinds of control, whether it's something as huge and horrifying as Kirtland or in much smaller everyday interactions. That ability to really discern, to think for yourself, that's maybe the most vital tool you have for navigating all the complex ways people try to influence each other.
Please subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to create even more great content for you. Thank you so much.